Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War Veni objectives for the Vidi Vici event, in which the Veneratus is added to the game. So we have quite a few things going on this week. But before we do, this week actually marks the 7-year anniversary of this channel. We've been covering these videos for 7 years straight now, every single week. So that's a pretty nice milestone. We're actually going to be celebrating it on the actual exact 7-year mark, which is this Sunday. So hopefully we'll have a bunch of redeem codes. We'll be doing a day-long stream for Gems of War, likely farming the Vault event, going for 1,000 keys, and truly going for 1,000 keys this time. We're not stopping until we get it. But yeah, we'll be doing that this weekend, all throughout the weekend, but specifically including it on the 7-year anniversary, which is this Sunday, which of course we also have a Vault weekend this weekend, so I'll be able to grind that out all the way. Anyways, so yeah, we have quite a few things going on this week. We got a Vault weekend. We actually have a delay of the campaign, so some of you guys probably already seen this if you logged in before this video goes up. However, there's no campaign going on right now. We just had a Tower of Doom last week, and of course now should be a new campaign starting. However, it has gotten delayed by 2 weeks. The main reason for this is the 6.9 patch is actually going to be tweaking how this works, and that's likely coming out next week, Tuesday. I don't think we have an absolute confirmed date, but definitely has to be sometime before this date. So sometime within the next 14 days, we'll be getting a patch, and it'll mostly be reworking campaign, and supposedly it does a few other things as well. However, it'll mostly be rebalancing how the campaigns work, so we'll have to wait exactly to see how that will pan out. Aside from that, as I mentioned, we have a Vault event this weekend. We have the start of the Spring event, which is pretty cool. And as far as that, it ends up coming in with a new troop right over here. Let's see if we go over to standard battles. Of course, basically how you want to do this is ideally spend 50 gems every single day. And this will allow you to buy out all the more important stuff from the shop, like the Spring armor, 1 copy of the Legends, all the pets, and make sure to get enough to get 1 gold copy. So basically 6 times. And if you want, the Power Orb as well. So pretty standard, just do your 6 battles every single day. The 3 you get for free, the 3 that you get for spending 50 gems, and you'll end up getting all your reward. Doesn't matter which one of these you take, because they all give you the exact same amount of output. But yeah, we got this cool looking armor, the male and female version, though it's showing both female, because I'm currently using one of the models that is only female, and it's going to glitch out. That's what the male one looks like. That one right over there that has no head. Anyways. We get a new troop with it. Of course, this one is technically not available for a couple days if you're doing the slower method. Though if you buy enough tiers, you could technically have it today if you really wanted to. But we have the Beltane. It converts all blue gems to green and all purple gems to yellow. It'll mostly only be used in 4x Wildfolk team, most likely with Wild King or something similar. It also gives a bunch of random stats effects to your allies, but not only are the stats effects random, but the number that it gives is also random. And unfortunately, if it ends up only doing 1, not really that good. If it was a higher guaranteed amount, it'd probably be decent. But it's going to be too inconsistent likely to use out of any context that isn't a 4x Wildfolk team. And it gets a little bit of nature link, so it could help something like a Wild Queen. And it also gives a bunch of life to all green allies whenever matching for green gems, which is likely not to be used much. Fortunately, pretty underwhelming traits, so it's almost only going to be used for its ability under only Wildfolk teams. But we have this little Snapdragon, which gives the other troop a little bit more stats. Not that many, but up to 5 to all stats, which unfortunately doesn't gain any benefit from having higher magic, so it's pretty much just durability, which is a little unfortunate. Obviously, anything like that ends up getting the ability to end up getting more magic value tends to be pretty good. However, speaking of things that are actually pretty good, though, we have the new Glory Troop coming in this week. So, looks like they messed up the trait stone here. This is giving fire trait stones with green-blue. It should be giving a green or a blue one. That's kind of weird. I didn't even notice that earlier. Let me go buy it. Is it actually doing that? Yeah, it is. That's so weird. I wonder if they'll fix that a little bit later. Normally how they work is the minor trait stone is one of the 2 colors corresponding to the troop itself. But it's giving red instead of green or blue. So I guess maybe they changed its color last minute. That's kind of funny. Maybe it was like red-green or red-blue earlier and they changed it to green-blue. But anyways, they forgot to change the trait stone color. So a great time to stock up on green-blue arcanes. And apparently red minor trait stones if they don't fix that. But basically what his ability does is convert all red into yellow dragon gems. This is noteworthy because it is specifically dragon gems. This means it is almost like an alternative Leprechaun. Not quite. Leprechaun's still going to be way more consistent. However, this does theoretically give it a chance to almost full board clear. If a lot of the red-yellow alignments are towards the top, all the explodes will go downwards. So if you can get lucky with a bunch of lines at the top related to red and yellow, you will explode almost the entire board while also accumulating a bunch of yellow mana. This can make it a great alternative to using Mercy instead of using Mercy, as it uses the same colors and is ultimately converting to the same color, being yellow. It just denies red instead of denying purple, and without any of the cleanse, but overall with slightly more mana accumulation and board clear, as you'll be able to get the explosions from the dragon gems. So pretty cool, has some spell reduction as well, and overall has a lot of potential going forward, as does pretty much every Empower converter. But I'm really curious to see how this ends up going. as this is one of the highest mana accumulating empowers we've ever gotten. Not counting Leprechaun. It's probably like the second highest as far as empowers are concerned. So, of course, he does require alignment, unlike Leprechaun, so that will bring him down a little bit in usability, but curious to see how he works. One thing to keep in mind if you are building anything with him, well, I don't have any teams showing it with him, Steam Whistle has a red-yellow storm, which would greatly benefit this. So if you do end up building something around it, you might want to consider using that troop to have that red-yellow storm, and just gives it a lot more value. But anyways, really, really interesting dragon that will have a lot of usability into the future, and one of the few instances of dragon gems actually being not horrible within the game, which is always cool to see. Anyways, as far as the event queue drop table, unlike last week, nothing new in the drop table. However, there are quite a few things in it. One thing that should be mentioned first, though, are all the things that are not in it, as the list is pretty long. So here are all the things that are not in the event queue drop table. Obviously, Diamantina. This is from getting a bunch of Dragonite, getting all the dragons through RNG, then getting all the weapons, and then finally getting yourself a Diamantina, which we finally did recently. 2 of them. However, that's super hard to get. Oddly enough, 2 of the hardest things to get in the entire game, both from this kingdom. Horde Mimic is a random drop whenever you get a Mimic from Explore. The quickest way to do this is spam Explore 12 for dozens upon dozens of hours. Could even take hundreds of hours if you get unlucky. It is a very, very hard to obtain troop that is pretty much pointless to own other than for completionist purposes. But he is not in event queue drop table. Other things that are not are obviously the 4 faction troops from Wyrmrun, as is with every 4 faction troop, or 5 if they got in the Deep Delve variant. And lastly, the Periton. This is only from some Guild Wars. Every 6 Guild Wars, you'll end up getting this as a reward. And I don't think we had it for the most recent one. I don't even remember what it was. But yeah, every 6 Guild Wars, so you should be able to go get yourself Periton. So those are all the ones that are not in drop table. As far as useful things that are, we have a couple of the gem spawn dragons like Elmagrim and Ishtara. They're not anything over the top, but they can be usable depending on the team. Divinia, while generally Mercy is just used instead, is a great way to mana accumulate while getting cleanse onto your team. So there are some situations where you bring it out. Essentia is currently the only 50% mana star dragon in the game, so sometimes this is used for Diamantina or other very strong dragons that would benefit from 50% mana start. The highest spell reduction trip in the entire game is surprisingly from this kingdom. Reduces 75% spell reduction. Despite this being the highest number, it is generally higher tankability to use Tina 9000, assuming you're up against a physical damage, spell damage team. The main reason for this is even though this has 75% reduction, it does not gain any amount of life or armor from its ability, whereas Tina 9000 does gain armor, so if they are using physical damage, which you know would hit the armor first, this actually has slightly less tankability than Tina 9000. And for that reason, generally Tina 9000 is just used instead. Not to mention Tina 9000 has way better damage output and just an overall better ability. Anyways, Dragon Soul, while good for souls, its damage has kind of fallen off. The max you could possibly do is 20, and obviously that gets increasingly weaker as time goes on. Other things in here of relevance, Dragonian Monk, one of the earliest game best barriers you can have. So if you're a newer player and you want to open a few event keys to get a really good barrier troop, consider getting Dragonian Monk. This will help you out a lot. Veneratus is pretty good, however, you can also just get this for glory this week, though he's also available in the event key drop table. Wolfthanax, useful for a couple of the events this week, has really high damage output, really good in Arena as well. However, of course, owning it doesn't really help you in Arena. Egg Thief, really good mana accumulator for gold farming teams, and pretty much used exclusively only for that. And Dragatar, just a really good early game tank. So a lot of good like mid-tier options. It's mostly just utility troops from this place, like another converter here, stuff like that. It's almost entirely composed of assisting troops, which is perfectly fine. And yeah, it's mostly just support stuff as far as what's in the event key drop table. It's definitely not a must-have week to open up event keys, but if you're looking to fill any gaps in any of those utilities, it is definitely potentially a good week to do so. With that being said, Dragon Claw does end up reaching 27 stars. Of course, many people will be locked behind or at 26, as getting to 27 to do the levels is not really advised. There's not enough scrolls to end up doing in the game in the current state of the game, so kind of hard to get that upgrade, but you can end up getting to 10 a little bit easier, to 20, stuff like that if you want to get any of those milestones. I believe it is for armor, if I am not mistaken. Yeah, you gain extra armor, so if you want to buff up your Guards Avatar team, your Ruane team, stuff like that, you can end up going for those star milestones, 5, 10, 20, all those kind of things in order to buff up your armor ever so slightly. Anyways, aside from that, I kind of already went over this, but yeah, don't forget we do have the spring event that just came in. It will be going for the next 2 weeks. It is advised to do your 3 daily battles and to buy 50 gems every single day to get some additional battles. Of course, this is not required. However, it does help you to get all the main rewards, that being 1 spring armor, 1 Beltane, 6 of the dragon, 5 to get it initially max, and then 1 to get the gold variant. And then if you have some spares, you can go for the Orb of Power at the end, which is also achievement if you haven't done that yet. and also just a good utility to have, especially if you're still working towards Zul'Goth and Enraged Karandera. As well as, who knows, be able to finally add a third one that uses power orbs at some point. I sure hope so. Anyways, aside from that, guild events, we only have one, and that is a Matter of Faith, the good old standard world event. Pretty straightforward, and we have a lot of extra damage. We have both skull damage and spell damage, and there are some good things to use for that. We have Divine Ishpala into Quillen combo, so you can end up doing that. But you can also just go down the AoE spell damage. We have access to dragons, so there's a ton of dragons that hit all enemies. Almost all dragons do in that regard. Actually, the cheaper team we have here is really going into that. But you have access to divine and dragon, so AoE spam or skull spam are your two biggest ways to end up going down as far as this event is concerned. Divine and dragon leaves quite a few options as far as just things that can hit everything, but you also have access to a few empowers here, most notably being Mercy and Veneratus. So you can end up using either of these to convert into a bunch of mana accumulation for any yellow trip you might want to have, and then just end up winning off that yellow. So like even in this team right here, we could end up like putting something like that in there, end up getting a bunch of value for our Volthanax, and just killing them out with an AoE spam. And just kind of doing something along those lines. In this case, we use Diviner for it, but anything like that ends up working out pretty good. All you really need to know is that the Drake Rider is the worst room. As long as you're not taking Drake Rider, you should be taking the highest value room. It's in rarity order, just don't take Drake Rider and you should be good. So really straightforward world event. Next, we have all the things going on throughout the week that we haven't already mentioned. Tuesday, we're going to be having the faction event for the Wyrmrun faction. That is a red-yellow restriction that has a bunch of dragons in it. Wednesday, we have the dragon bonus pet, so this will end up giving you a bonus whenever you use 3 or 4 dragons on your team. On Thursday, we're going to be having the Dragon Guard hero class, which it's decent. Biggest issue with it is trying to build a team of 4 times dragon is kind of clunky, mostly because the Sensia is kind of bad and you're already giving up a spot doing so. And a lot of times, it's just not viable to give it 50% mana start, making it a little bit weaker than quite a few other triple damage burnings or the similar hero classes. The main noteworthy thing that it has is 40% score reduction with barrier at starter battle while having triple burning. This is ever so occasionally viable depending on the context of your team or context of your battle that you're doing. However, for the most part, it is generally outclassed by other triple damage burning hero classes, and it does have a little bit of a buff to pure dragon teams, giving them a little bit extra magic and such. However, it's such a small bonus that it is normally not worth it compared to other buffing troops within the game. And this Friday, as I mentioned, we're going to be having a Vault event all weekend, so definitely a great time to be grinding that for a bunch of resources in-game. We'll be covering a couple teams for that too in a moment once we get over to there. But first, let's go over all the things in Soulforge. So we have quite a few good mythics this week. Actually, honestly, almost any of them are almost good. But I would say the absolute best one to end up picking up is Ubistet. Ubistet, we just got Rope Dart the other week. Actually, you might even picked up an Ubistet last week. And if you open some event keys trying to get him and you didn't get him, well, you can still get him now. You can get him through Diamonds this week rather than event keys from last week. So, of course, Rope Dart was available last week. And if you end up picking that up, Ubistet is one of the better synergy troops for it. The main premise is you throw down Rope Dart and then you double kill with this, and then you repeat it again. Essentially, if he gets a kill, he will then kill the second weakest as well automatically. So you just Rope Dart them to bring them into kill range, cast Ubistet to get a double kill, cast Rope Dart again to get them into kill range, cast Ubistet again to wipe out the battle, and you won. And that's pretty much how he runs, and it's a really good combination. And if you just picked up Rope Dart last week, you might want to consider picking up this, as it's really good for running down factions, any kind of harder content in the game, and you can even use it for Yellow Guild War, as they both do correspond on yellow. So really great combination if you want to end up doing that. Aside from that, I would say the next best is probably Infernus. It's just a good all-around mythic. Covers pretty much everything you need. Has mana accumulation, has board clear, has damage that goes past Submerge, has as well as barrier to a degree because it hits in multiple waves of damage. Has a storm into his own color, has 4 times burn, which is actually the best burner in the game. The main reason he's not used as a burner too often for like triple damage burning teams is triple damage burning teams normally want Zul'Goth instead. However, if you're doing like an Elamagrim team or something, which you don't really need Zul'Goth for, you can end up going down this route and getting your burn even easier, as all you need is a single extra turn rather than having to fill a 32 mana troop. So ends up working out a little bit better in some of those contexts. So a great utility troop to end up having. And aside from that, if you want to soul farm, Ferrous Ra is always a good option. Of course, this has become less viable ever since we ended up getting Ironhawk. 2 times Ironhawk, 3 times Ironhawk, things like those has kind of invalidated Ferrous Ra a little bit because the amount of value you can get from that kind of combination during a Vault event, how many souls you can end up getting during then, kind of makes Ferrous Ra a little bit less worth using. However, if you ever need souls in a pinch, it is still the absolute best ways to get souls per hour when it's not a Vault event, so always worth considering if you do want to end up picking up 1 or 2 and to end up building a soul farm team out of if you ever end up needing some more. It's particularly better earlier on in the game when you actually need a bit more souls. Later in the game, you tend to need it less and less over time. Anyways, as far as weapon, I would say it is a pretty skippable week. as far as the options we have, unless you just want to get stuff for completionist sake or any kind of like explodey weapon or anything like that, like for the dragon synergy or any of those. Otherwise, there's nothing really particularly special. Just the standard stuff you'd see from any kingdom. So you're mostly just picking them up if you just want to have them, if you need them for kingdom upgrade, just to have them, or any other reason. But nothing particularly noteworthy to really point out as far as weapons, unless you want to pick out something yourself. Anyways, aside from that, let's go into all the teams, and we have quite a few to go mention. All 9 of them will be in the description below. I believe it was 9 of them. So let's start from the top. So, World Event. I'm going all in on a Guard's Avatar team here. I am going double in power, so I was mentioning the Veneratus and the Mercy earlier. So I'm running with both of them because why not? If you're going to run with one or the other, I would actually say go Veneratus, and then go with like another yellow AoE troop, like that one yellow-blue one. I forget his name. I use it on the other one. But using like the Voltherinix as one of them, and then just having your guards as the other, and putting that into like the third slot right here, or something similar. Something along those lines if you want to have another option. But basically, we're just going all in on Guard's Avatar. If he needs Barrier, we can just give it to it off of Reflection. And basically, we're just going for the very quick Guard's Avatar win, just with a little bit of a different setup than what you might normally go under when you have more options. Anyways, for the next one, we have pretty much just AoE spam like crazy. You could go down the Empower route too if you want to, replace a Diviner for the new Empower or something similar. But in this case, I ended up going down the Diviner route. It has a chance of giving you Magic Cleanse, stuff like that. Mostly, ideally, the Magic. And Voltherinix won the slightly lower rarity. It's only Epic, so towards the lower end. As far as damage output, Explosion Gem deals a bunch of damage to all enemies boosted by yellow, and every yellow they exploded with that ends up doing 4 additional damage, and normally you'll be able to do about 2 to 4 of them. So let's say you do 3 or so. It's going to be 12 additional damage to all enemies, which isn't that bad at all, and that 12 damage does get boost ratioed by all of the metal as well. So if you have something like 200% bonus, that will end up becoming even more damage. If you had like 12 damage, it'd become 36 as far as the additional damage there. Paying Along's mostly just here because it's super easy to get. Of course, you could end up doubling up with some kind of other AoE, or even just adding another one, like, Guard's Avatar if you really want to, or, whatever else. However, this is really easy to obtain. You get it for free from completing out the Shentang Kingdom if you haven't already, so really accessible. And you could even go with double Pengalong if you happen to not have the other option, or even just simply use Pengalong as your main option with this Black Manacle, and just keep chipping them down that way, and just put some kind of other mana accumulator on your team. Anyways, as far as the faction, we have the Wyrmrun faction that will be taking place tomorrow on Tuesday. That faction is a red-yellow, so for the first team, we're just running a all-in finesse, just triple finesse into the Stormcaller hero class. And by Stormcaller, I meant to say, oh yeah, never mind, Stormcaller. I thought that's the wrong one for a second. But yeah, Stormcaller is used for its perpetual yellow storm. This ends up giving you the ratio, so he does the mana accumulation, and basically you just keep casting finesse until you win. For the next one we have here, we're doing an Iron Gut Zul'Goth team, and of course, we do have access to Bane of Mercy as of a couple weeks ago. Honestly, we've been getting some really good Empower converts lately. They've been going kind of crazy with what they could do. The last 2 have been insanely good. We end up getting Bane of Mercy as the previous one. Now we got the one that came in this week with the Dragons convert. Really curious to see what else they might come up with, because these are always viable troops. So I wonder if they're just going to go down the route and just add like 10, 20 more of these over the next year, which I wouldn't really mind, though that's going to make Guild War insufferable. But as far as everything else, it'll be fine. But it will cause the era of triple Empower book teams in Guild War to increase tenfold, but we'll see how it goes. At least as far as everywhere else, it makes it a lot more usable. Because having more Empower so we don't have to go Leprechaun or something similar is always nice to have. And as they add more, obviously, we can start converting it out for other things. Anyways, we're using Harpy Mage, speaking of Leprechaun, we're using Harpy Mage basically as a turn 2 Leprechaun, because that 75% mana start with a enchant, it'll automatically have mana on turn 2. So we're basically just doing that to explode on the second turn after Bane of Mercy does its thing. It's mostly just to get your mana back up. It also gives Brownstorm to get Hiking Iron Gut again. And we're basically spamming Hiking Iron Gut Zul'Goth, pretty standard combination for high-level delves. Pure faction, you basically want to double Terror Worm into double Great Worm. Terror Worm you can solo the entire faction with. It gains a bunch of attack and armor. Any kind of mechanic like this in Delves will auto-win, even just with one of them. Basically anything that gains attack damage while gaining any durability stat, ideally HP, but in his case armor, can pretty much just auto-win the entire faction. And that's exactly what he does. We're doubling up on him just to make sure if he dies, we'll have a backup. And the reason why I say that is you actually get to create skulls at the start of every single turn with your worm, which is not actually good. The enemy will generally get more value from their skulls than you, especially earlier on before you get the buff on your Terror Worm. So this could actually backfire pretty heavily when you're actually running this at like level 500 Delve or something similar, whenever you're running in deeper Delves. That can easily end up backfiring. The main reason we're using this is to kind of just damage pressure to speed up the battle. He does have a full AoE cast, so we're mostly just using this to just keep pummeling down the enemy and just keep chipping them down while your Terror Worm stays invincible. Alternatively, you can go all in on the Terror Worm and just go and keep buffing it over and over and over and over again. Have it until it one-shots, two-shots the entire enemy team, and then start wiping out everything. But as long as you have at least one Terror Worm going into the final battle, you should be perfectly fine. So however you want to go about doing that will be good for the faction event. Next, we have the Dragon Guard class event. This will be taking place on Thursday. It is specifically the restriction of Dragon Guard dragons, or sorry, Dragon Claw dragons. So any of them will end up working. Luckily, almost the entire kingdom is dragon, so almost everything is valid as far as what you can use. And we're basically just using a Dawnbringer, trying to feed it up with the new yellow converter, with the yellow dragon gems, and just feeding into Dawnbringer. Any excess goes into Volthanax, which is kind of the combination I was mentioning earlier with Guard's Avatar into Volthanax. However, this one does Dawnbringer into Volthanax, because of course you cannot use Guard's Avatar in this particular situation. And we just have this guy here just kind of chill. You can replace it out for some more mana accumulation if you really want to. I just had it so for color coverage, just so we'd have a little bit more coverage there, in case we get some really bad starting boards. Next, we have some of the Vault event teams. So I'm actually showing all three of them here. Obviously, there are more that you can be using, but some of them are standard three. So first, we have the super low rarity one. This is the most accessible thing that can super quick kill battles. It is any weapon in first slot. Rowan, which you get from free from Forest of Thorns. Leprechaun, which is pure RNG, but it's only an ultra rare. And Mirage Queen, which is a legendary. However, you just get it through several hundred shards at the Sunken Fleet faction. So even though it's a legendary, it is super easy to get. It is actually easier to get the Mirage Queen than it is to get Leprechaun in many situations, as it is very rarely that you'll be able to target Leprechaun, whereas you are always capable of targeting Mirage Queen with Underworld shards, specifically from Sunken Fleet. So you normally just have to worry about getting this traded and getting the RNG for Leprechaun. Once you do, you just have the rest of the team. Black Manacles just from leveling up your hero, and Rowan from free from Forest of Thorns, as I mentioned. And it's just a one-shot Rowan. You just cast Leprechaun. The 50% mana star for Mirage Queen gives you basically automatic full mana when you cast your Leprechaun. And then you just one-shot with a Rowan at a low-level Explorer, either 2, 3, 4, or 5, depending on what you can one-shot up to. And just do it there. Just keep doing that over and over again. You can get the Vault event done very quickly. And just keep farming it over and over for a bunch of Vault keys. Next, we have the Sister Superior Dust Devil build. This is the double Ironhawk build, as well as the one that you do when you're doing the Palooza themselves, as they will have enough durability to survive if you do 20 damage. However, you will be able to kill if you do 25, which is what you'll be able to do. You'll do 10 when you do Sister Superior, due to the double Ironhawk final trait, and then you'll do 15 when you do the Dust Devil, 5 off his own ability, and then the other 10 from the 2 Ironhawk 5 damages, and they both have Empower, so you get to do that immediately. If they happen to revive or anything else weirdly, or they happen to survive for whatever reason, you also have the ability to take a single yellow, and it doesn't even need a Surge, in order to get full mana on Sister Superior. Or you can go for a double brown and likely Surge on one of them to get Dust Devil back up. The other thing is for factions, or sorry, not factions, I mean when you're verse farming, you can end up doing it with a one-shot. So there are a couple locations that can die to 20 damage. For example, things like Wild Plains, Cinder Mirage still die to 20 damage. And essentially, you just cast Dust Devil and everything dies. Of course, the newer gnome, or the most newest gnome, the Dragonite gnome, does survive this 20 damage poke. However, he appears very infrequently. So he's normally going to die, or, you know, you don't have to deal with his survive that often. Aside from that, some legends, when taking over things like the Soul Gnome, when it replaces a legend, I think can also survive. And one other thing that can survive is, of course, almost every mythic in the game. But that's the case for most of them, as some of them even go above the 26 durability. So some of them are pretty bulky, as they are mythics, of course. And that's pretty much all you need to run down the Vault event. You're mostly just looking to win as quickly as possible, over and over and over again, in order to get as many Vault Key and other shiny loots during the Vault event. But anyways, guys, that's a full rundown on everything this week. If you want any of those teams, they'll all be in the description below for all the teams throughout the week, all 9 of them, in order that we went over them. If you still have any other questions, feel free to leave it in the comment section below as well, and I'll get around to them. Aside from that, yeah, the 7-year anniversary of the channel's this Sunday, so we'll be grinding Friday, Saturday, and Sunday here on the channel for the 1,000 Vault Keys, and on Sunday we'll be super celebrating, continuing the grind, also having a bunch of codes, and yeah, just having a bunch of fun with the 7-year anniversary of the channel. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for the support over the years. It is greatly, greatly appreciated. It means a ton, and I will catch you guys later. Hope you all have a wonderful week. Goodbye, everyone.